But here's the idea. You're going along just fine. Something emerges from the depths, so to speak. So it's some complex phenomena that was heretofore invisible that made its manifestation. It knocks the validity out of your current mode of operation. And it plunges you into a place that's chaotic and complex, where you flail about, mostly in negative emotion, depending on how radical the discontinuity is. Because if it's just a little one, well, maybe you'll find it exciting. But if it's a big one, man, you're down there in the dumps, so to speak, for a very long period of time. Now, with any luck, and this is sort of Piagetian idea, you do some exploration and some recategorization. You ingest the new information that was associated with the anomalous event. So that's like the treasure that the dragon guards. And then you pop up and you have a new framework of reference, and it's better than the old one in that it does everything the old one did, plus it accounts for the new thing that brought you down. Now, if you can't do that, and you've been hit hard, then you have something like post-traumatic stress disorder, or an anxiety disorder, or long-term depression. And you're stuck down there in chaos and the underworld, and maybe you never get back up. So, narrative. Narrative 1, point A to point B, and here's how to do it. Narrative 2, what do you do when your narrative falls apart? That's a meta-narrative. The narrative falls apart, you fall somewhere. Something happens there that's transformative, or not, and then you pop back out. So the meta-narrative is a narrative about the transformation of narratives. And it's the meta-narrative that most mythologies feature front and center, because it's basically the same as the hero myth. The hero myth, the hero is the person who encounters the anomalous and the unknown at a time and place of their choosing. Garners the information, which is the treasure, that the anomalous predatory thing guards, and if it's a full hero myth, shares that with the community and reconstitutes themselves. And that's the fundamental story of mankind. It's the fundamental story. And if you understand the categories, or if you're, I think if you understand the categories in the manner that I laid out, then you can understand those stories. And that is so cool, because they're so powerful, and they orient you properly. And it just demolishes the nihilism and totalitarian belief-inducing elements of moral relativism and the collapse of religious belief systems. Because it can put some ground underneath your feet again. And it's important, like it's a defense against ideology, and it's a defense against despair. And those things are attractive forces. And nihilism in particular, it's like, life is suffering. Why shouldn't you be cynical about it? Well, that's a real question. That question's no joke. It's like, just get on with it. Yeah, right, that's not going to help.
Is it a defense against ideology because of its technology?
It's a defense against, that's a good question. This is a defense against ideology because it tells you something different about the state of your being. So here's how it works. You could be locked in your first system. I don't care what the system is. You're locked in it. You're an ideologue. Something comes along and blows your system into bits. You're in the underworld. You're in chaos. So you're either an ideologue or protected, or poof, you're blown into bits. Okay. Well, then another identity you could have, instead of the identity of the initial framework, is you can have the identity of being in chaos. And then you're sort of a nihilist, you know, you're fundamentally depressed, you're cynical about the world, it's hard for you to get motivated, and so forth. So that's your identity. Or you could have the identity that you rebuilt after going through one of those processes. And you think, well, that'd be an improvement because it's a better identity than the previous one. And it's certainly a lot more pleasant than being neck deep in snakes and lizards. And so that's an improvement. But then there's a step that you can take that's further, that's better, which is forget about identifying with the first stage or the second stage, which is the collapse, or the third stage. Forget about all of that. Realize that you're the process of doing that. That's what you are, fundamentally. So you don't have to identify with what you believe, and you don't have to identify with despair. You can identify with the process of coming to terms with the world as it manifests itself. And you do embody that process, if you want. And not only that, while you're engaged in that process, number one, you're engaged. That's a good thing. And number two, the systems that protect you against despair and pain, so if you're going to think about it biologically, that would be the dopaminergic system primarily, that thing is on. You're in the game. But you're a player, you're not the game. And I believe that what religious stories attempt to teach people, among very many other things, is that you're not the bloody game, and you're not the chaos of defeat. You're the player. And you play many games. And the meaning is in the playing. And it's not a platitude. That is actually where the meaning is, and the meaning is real. And so then the question is, the more fundamental question is that meaning real enough to protect you from cynicism and nihilism? And the answer to that is, you have to figure that out for yourself. Because no one can tell you that. But the stories can show you the way, so to speak, which is why they're there.